Seems to be some kind of a minor technical problem. Sorry for getting in here a little bit late. There seemed to be some issue about the link that I sent out. I think, I share, we share this Zoom connection with other classes, and somehow the class I set up is not there, only the Wednesday class. So that was very strange. So, okay, I was showing some, I want to make sure we're recording this. Yeah, we're recording this class. So I was showing before I realized that there was an issue, the latest videos coming out of Ukraine with the war there. And again, trying to show how we're analyzing the European Union's impact on the peoples of Europe. That's the theme of this course, European Politics and Society, the impact of the European Union on the peoples of Europe, because that's really the key to European Union as a strategy for peace in Europe. The impact of the European Union on the collective groups of people that we call nations in Europe, in particular, the Germans, the French, the Italians, the Polish people, all of these different groups that are very, very large, right? In the German case, you have over 80 million people. In the French case, over 60 million, over Italian case, another 60 million. And the impact of the European integration upon these peoples is the key for understanding the good and bad side of the European Union as an effort to bring peace to the peoples of Europe. And I said good and bad side because, of course, we see that unfortunately or unintentionally or due to poor understanding or difficulty in understanding the worldviews of other people within Europe, the European Union today, at least among the government in Moscow and Russia and the Putin administration, tends to view the European Union as a threat. And I'm not saying all Russians view the European Union as a threat, but the dominant prevailing political worldview in the Russian government today is the government in Moscow, led by, but not only by Vladimir Putin, is that the European Union is a threat to Russia. Now, you might think that's an obvious statement, but it's not an obvious statement because when you read the media, particularly the American media going on presently, there's much implicit discussion of what is the source of Russian hostility towards NATO and the European Union. And one of the implicit arguments is that Russia is hostile to the European Union because they see the European Union as an obstacle to rebuilding a Russian empire, to rebuilding what they lost when the Soviet Union disintegrated at the end of 1991, before most of you were born. All of you, I think, were born. In other words, that the European Union is a point of hostility in the viewpoint of Russia because the European Union is seen as an obstacle to Russian desire to reconquer the territories it lost when the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, 1992. And this is an important discussion. And it's important for this class in particular because even though we're not reading chapters on Ukraine, we don't have book reading on Russia, we have to understand how it is that, for example, the European Union succeeded in bringing peace between the French and the German peoples and the German and the Polish peoples, because that is an achievement. That is an impact of European integration. Again, to repeat some points I made earlier, right? That during World War II, for example, some estimates say that up to 1/5 of the population of what was then Poland died during World War II. Of course, the Soviet Union invaded Poland as well and was responsible for a great deal of that suffering. But when you consider the terrible crimes that were committed on Polish territory by the Germans against Polish people and Jewish people and other peoples living on the territory of what was then the state of Poland, it's really remarkable today that there is not, I think one could argue it's really remarkable today that there's not more conflict between Germans and Polish people, between Germany and Poland. There is some conflict, but considering the horrible bloodshed that happened, the genocidal fighting and killing that happened in the lives of some people that are still around today, people that are into their 80s, there are people still who live today who remember what happened in World War II. And despite that genocidal violence, the Polish government allows German companies, German businesses, German corporations based and headquartered in Germany to invest tremendous amounts of money in the Polish economy. Tremendous amounts, so much so that the Polish economy has been transformed since Poland joined the European Union in 2004. And much of that transformation has come from German investment. The investment by German businesses, German corporations in Poland has transformed the Polish economy. And I read closely the American media press reports. I never encounter reports about Polish concerns that these German companies like Siemens or Volkswagen or other famous German companies, that they are going to allow Germany to take control over Poland through their economic power on behalf of the German government, that these corporations, these German companies are going to play a role in threatening the well-being and sovereignty of the Polish nation. I never encounter such discussions. I never see such references in the, at least in the New York Times business section that I read every day for years and years, every article. I never have encountered such statements. Now, I'm sure there are people that do have such concerns, but their concerns evidently do not rise to a level of political significance that they attract the attention of New York Times business reporters. And that is really, really important. That is really, in a sense, remarkable. And again, any explanation for why the Polish nation today is quite willing to accept German investment and German tremendous involvement economically in the Polish economy has to include the role of the European Union and Europeanization and European integration in convincing Polish observers that the German government does not control German companies. And that explanation for that belief that the German government in Berlin does not control Volkswagen, does not control Siemens, those are the two most well-known German companies, does not control Mercedes-Benz or Daimler-Benz, has to be explained partly through Europeanization. The European Union has succeeded in convincing your typical Polish observer that German economic power is not dominated by the German government in Berlin, that German economic activity by German companies based or headquartered in Germany are not under the control of the German government. And any explanation for that belief has to include the impact of the European Union, the existence of the European Union, the functioning of the European Union, the bodies of the European Union, like the European Parliament, the European Court of Justice, the Council of Ministers, and the European Council, and all of the institutions in the European Union that disperse the power of the member states of the European Union among these different actors, so that your typical Polish person or French person is not worried, or I should say your typical Polish observer or French observer is not worried that German money is going to be a vehicle for German imperialism in their country. But there's a dilemma here, and it's another theme in the reading for this week, and that is that the creation of the European Union, going back to its beginnings in the early 1950s with the signing of the European Coal and Steel Community Treaty the Treaty of Paris that was signed in the early 1950s to begin European integration, that required the creation of the European, what became the European Union, required strong, powerful states to make European integration happen. Right? That the European Union, to be successful, needs to have effective member state governments, effective governments in the member states that are, relatively speaking, effective in adopting policies in their states, in Italy, in Germany, in France, that can promote the integration of their economies, of the Italian and the German and the French economy with each other. So it's a paradox, or it's a dilemma, right? That at the same time as the European Union aims to lessen the power of nationalism, it still requires that effective national governments exist to make the European Union happen, to be successful. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, the European Union is reluctant to bring in, for example, other states into the European Union, like Ukraine, although Ukraine has other problems, right? But Ukraine government is very weak. The Ukrainian government, before the fighting this year, and of course, going all the way back to 2014, when the first fighting broke out in eastern Ukraine with the breakaway of eastern Ukraine, the Ukraine government was very, very weak. It's not able to implement, carry out the reforms it needs to carry out to join the European Union. It has great difficulty in implementing the rule of law, to enforce the laws that already exist in Ukraine. Corruption is a terrible, terrible, terrible problem in Ukraine. It's very hard to do anything, to accomplish anything within Ukraine as a Ukrainian business or a Ukrainian company or an investor without bribing somebody. It is a tremendously corrupt country. And that's because Ukraine is not like Germany and France and even Poland, these countries that are, relatively speaking, effective, powerful nation states that together make the European Union succeed. So let's go to an exercise, and let's also go to the cyber campus, because otherwise I will forget to do the attendance, as a way by which to get us involved here, and ask you first to vote on this topic. What do you think about this topic? That Europeanization is primarily about national governments legally agreeing to limit their respective national sovereignties. How do you respond to that? So could you please vote on how you feel about that? That Europeanization is primarily about national governments legally agreeing to limit their respective national sovereignties. And maybe what I can do now also is to, oh, did I just close? No, okay, we're still there. Okay, so let's form you into breakout rooms. So let's make 2 breakout rooms, assign automatically, and open all the rooms. And so Anais and Gloria and Subin, please join room 1, and Ella and Sarah are in room 2. And so Sarah Maria Pulin, okay, so please tell me how you vote on this topic about as to whether or not the European Union exists. Well, let me see, what did I do with the screen here? I'm looking for the, oh, there it is. Okay, on this topic, and make sure you can see it. So let me go share screen again, and we go here, cyber. So how do you respond to this? That Europeanization is primarily about national governments legally agreeing to limit their respective national sovereignties. And so do you strongly agree, neutral cannot decide, disagree, or strongly disagree? Is that what the European Union aims to do, is to limit the national sovereignty of Germany, limit the national sovereignty of Poland, limit the national sovereignty of Italy, limit the national sovereignty of Belgium, limit the national sovereignty of all of the 27 member states, Is that what Europeanization is and European integration is primarily about? So could you please, as two groups, discuss that as to whether or not you're a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, so that we have some discussion, because as I said at the last class, all I did was talk and talk and talk, and I don't want to talk so much. I want to more interact with you and talk some more while interacting with you. So again, there's no right or wrong answer on this, but if you could tell me where your group sits on that question, and maybe I will also assign somebody to speak for each group. So let me go back to the breakout rooms. And so heads, it's the first person in each group will speak, and it is, let me see what it is here, and it is tails. So that means it is Sarah and Gloria, your heads, and it is and Subin. So Subin for room 1 and Sarah Maria Paulin Septien for room 2. So Subin and Sarah will speak for their group. So where does your group fit? And of course, there's no right or wrong answer, but I want you to think about this, about the impact of Europeanization on the member states of the European Union. What is your group's view as to reacting to the statement that Europeanization is primarily about national governments agreeing to limit their power, their sovereignty over their own countries? Okay, and I will write a statement as well. And heads, I'm 1, 2, or 3, and it's heads. So heads, I'm 1, and I'm tails. Heads, I'm 2. And it is tails. So I agree. So I will write an agree statement, and so I will do that now. And I too agree. Okay. And please explain your group's position.
Do you want me to go, Sarah?
Oh, if you're ready, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
let's hear what you have to say. So let me close the breakout room. So 60 seconds. If you're not finished, please finish up. I've got to allow the breakout rooms to close here. So I'm writing down my statement. Okay. Okay, I guess we're done. All right, so let's see who's going to speak first. And I think I have to be careful. So heads is group 1 will speak first, and it's tails. So that means we will have Sarah speak for room 2, please.
Yeah, sure, but about the questions or?
Yeah, about the question. Do you strongly agree, disagree?
Which question are we going first? The first one?
The one about this question. I'm going to share the screen again. Europeanization is primarily about national governments legally agreeing to limit their respective national sovereignty.
Well, I put it like I agree. So.
And why does your group agree?
Wait. It's just because I totally forgot.
I can answer for.
Okay. Okay,
We said agree because like the book says that Europeanization is the impact of integration. And I think, or we think an impact of integration would be countries like agreeing to limit their national sovereignty. Like Germany can't do whatever it wants all the time, and Poland can't do whatever they want all the time. Like they have to compromise on certain things.
Well, that's excellent, Ella, but why? Why would they do that? What benefit do they get?
They both get kind of like, it's like a mutual compromise. Like they wouldn't go to war with each other or have like complete terrible disagreements over certain things, I believe.
Okay, yeah, and so how does that help them get more of something? Like why are the benefits? Are you saying that the costs of failing to Europeanize outweigh the benefits? Because it sounds like, isn't it kind of depressing that you're saying, well, we've got to be nice to each other because if we're not nice to each other, we're going to have another war. We could risk another World War III. Isn't there something more brighter or optimistic that comes from Europeanization?
I personally do not know. I lean, I guess, to the more cynical side of like, yeah, I guess that it's more beneficial to have the European Union to prevent conflict.
Well, let's not underestimate the cynical side, right? Because, we know that if we don't make an effort to cooperate with each other, we could very well allow suspicion and paranoia to build and build and build to create the kind of conflicts that we fear would happen. And that may be an argument what's going on now with regard to Russia and European Union and NATO, that Russia is ultimately afraid of European Union and NATO. Of course, they're not going to say, we're afraid. They're not going to say that because that would make them believe that if they were to admit that they're afraid that they will look vulnerable and weak and make them even more likely to be abused and threatened by NATO and European Union because they appear weak. But the suspicion and paranoia of conflict, of insecurity, leading to conflict, which builds to more anxiety and fear and more insecurity and even more fear and preparations to deal with that danger that may or may not be there, to basically make a self-fulfilling prophecy through an escalating spiral of conflict. This is called a conflict spiral. And this produced World War I, by the way. This isn't just some intellectual abstraction. This produced the First World War. The First World War was a war fought by countries that are all basically seeing threat from each other, but believing the other side was aggressively motivated, trying to create their dominance in Europe, when of course all I want, if I'm the country doing the perceiving, is my self-defense. But that person, that actor, they don't want self-defense. They want to dominate and control me. So I got to show them I'll fight them. So I'm not, you see, I got the will to resist. And the other actor is seeing me in the same way. And so they're escalating and building up their militaries, engaging in arms races, in competitive mobilization to show I'm tough, don't mess with me. And everybody's misperceiving the other as aggressive when everybody is ultimately defensively motivated. That produced the First World War. In other words, the First World War in Europe was a war that nobody really wanted to fight, at least not among the great powers against each other, not between Austria and Russia and Germany. They didn't really want to fight, but they thought, I'm defensive, but he's aggressive. And so I got to show him I'll fight him so that he doesn't go to war with me. And the other side responds is, no, he's aggressive, I'm defensive. So the result was this competitive escalation. So yeah, the point is, we don't want to underestimate the importance of this fear factor. And that is an important part of European integration, that I would argue it's going to be a theme throughout the semester, that the Europeanization, European integration process opens up the internal politics and decision-making processes, the policy decision-making processes within Germany, within France, within Italy, within Poland, within all of the member states to each other. So each country in the European Union can look inside each other's country's politics and understand what is going on, or think they understand what is going on, right? And limit the role of suspicion, confusion, and fear. Because the European Union is about opening up the policies and politics within the member states of the European Union to each other. Yeah. So the obstruction and the fear and the insecurity that can produce these conflict spirals is lessened. The potential is reduced. Okay, so good. That's a good point. And you know, this is our short class, so we're already almost halfway, you know, 30 minutes into it. So let's go to our next group, and the next group is I think we had Subin. Is yes, Subin. What did your group decide? Subin? Subin?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Is your group 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5?
Oh, our group chose agree one.
Agree. Okay. And okay, so why did your group choose agree? Why agree? Subin? Subinchi? Subin? We lost Subin. Oh well. Okay. Well, let me show you why I think we can argue that there's benefits that come from Europeanization and European integration, aside from the points we just emphasized about lessening the paranoia and fear. There's also the added benefits that come from making countries believe that as a member of the European Union, that your country as a member of the European Union is really, really influential and powerful. So if I were to show here, let me see here, I have to find it. Here it is. Okay. So let me open this up and let me again share this screen here. Oh, okay. So make sure you can see this. So we go screen share and we go here, and let me show you this. Here is in international diplomacy, in countries engaging in international relations and diplomatic negotiation with each other in foreign policy, right? How can we understand some of the impacts of the European Union, of European integration? And here you see this. Look at this. These are lists of diplomatic bargaining levers that countries use when they engage in diplomatic negotiation with each other. And this is from a little book that on power that my professor produced years ago. And this is, the Europeanization has an impact on a number of different levels, but including, let's talk about this lever here first, right? That to the extent to which the member states of the European Union all belong in the European Union and convince the rest of the world that the European Union is real and that the European Union is important and that the European Union is active and that the European Union is a commitment that the European Union member states make through their pooling of their sovereignty, and they're committed to bringing their sovereignty together and limiting their sovereignty, then this increases all of the leverage that any country in the European Union has in negotiating with other countries, right? So if for example, let's take, I told you I spent 15 years in Bulgaria, right? So when I was in Bulgaria, one of the big issues in Bulgaria, comparable in the emotions that Bulgarians felt about the issue, was like how Koreans feel about the comfort women and the way the Japanese treated comfort women in Korea during World War II. In Bulgaria, one of the big issues was these Bulgarian doctors and nurses who the Libyan government under Muammar Gaddafi, this is obviously before he was overthrown in 2011, 11 years ago, that the Libyan government had arrested a number of Bulgarian doctors and nurses working in Libya. And you know, they had been working and living and working and making money in Libya for many, many years. During the communist times, the Bulgarian and Soviet and other communist governments would send their doctors and nurses to go work in countries with oil money like Libya and they would make money and send the money, the dollars that they were paid back home, and they could live a very good life. So there were lots and lots of still, after communism fell, lots of Bulgarian doctors and nurses working in Libya. And then there was an HIV/AIDS outbreak in a hospital in Libya, because they had this old medical practice that some countries still followed, of when a new baby was born, to transfuse some blood into that baby, because that was seen as to help promote and instigate the systems of the newborn baby to grow and develop, and to transfuse some blood from in the hospital into the newborn baby. And unfortunately, hundreds of babies were given blood that was tainted with HIV/AIDS virus. And so hundreds of Libyan newborn babies got this HIV/AIDS virus from this blood. And so it was a tremendous scandal in Libya. And the Libyan government blamed the Bulgarian doctors and nurses working in these hospitals, that the Bulgarian doctors and nurses did it on purpose as some sort of evil conspiracy, and blaming them, basically scapegoating them for their bad medical practices. And so the Bulgarian doctors and nurses were held in jail and tortured for years. And little Bulgaria, a country of 7 or 8 million people, was trying so hard to get them released, and was unable to convince or make the Libyan government under Muammar Gaddafi, Colonel Gaddafi, to give up the Bulgarian doctors and nurses. And then once Bulgaria joined the European Union in 2007, Union 15 years ago in 2007, almost immediately, the Libyan government surrendered, freed those Bulgarian doctors and nurses. And it's because once Bulgaria joined the European Union, all the other member states in the European Union were committed to helping each other, including Bulgaria, when Bulgaria had a problem, or when any country had a problem in the European Union with countries outside of the European Union, that the other member states of the European Union were committed to helping that country that was having, a member of the European Union that was having problems in its negotiations with Libya or Russia or anybody. So little Bulgaria became much, much more influential on the international relations when it joined the European Union in 2007. Because all of the rest of the world knows that when Bulgaria speaks, it has a lot of influence over France, over Germany, over Italy, over all of the other countries that belong in the European Union. Because the member states of the European Union are committed to making the European Union be successful, that the European Union must succeed, that the European Union must be real, that the European Union must be preserved as a fundamental objective of all the member states. And that means when a country in the European Union gets into problems, that the other countries in the European Union must support it against Libya or Russia or China or whomever. So that's a concrete benefit. That's a real concrete benefit for these countries agreeing to that they're going to, whenever they decide or begin to discuss or to decide on their own of doing something in international relations, as foreign policy, or even domestically within the country, that they must be willing to cooperate, coordinate, and collaborate with all of the other member states in the European Union. And that's difficult. That takes time. You've got to talk and negotiate with 26 other countries if you're Bulgaria or Italy or Belgium or France or Sweden, whomever. You've got to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. You can't do whatever you want to do immediately, but the benefits are that together, by pooling their sovereignties, all of these countries that are still proudly national, that they're Swedes are still generally proud of being Swedish. Bulgarians are still proud of being Bulgarian. Romanians are still proud of being Romanians. Greeks are still proud of being Greeks. But they know that they have much more influence in the world in every field, in international business, in international diplomacy, because they have agreed that they will coordinate, collaborate, and cooperate with each other. And everybody else believes it, or more or less. That Moscow believes it, that Washington believes it, that Beijing believes it, that Seoul believes it, that Tokyo believes it, and so on. Oh, and so somebody I think is reminding me we have to do attendance. Okay, oh, okay, yes. In fact, we do have to do attendance. So at that point, let me go to attendance here. And because I'll forget if we don't. And so we go to smart attendance and we go, I think we're still technically in week 1 because of we started on Wednesday. So we're still in week 1 here, but your number is 614, okay? So let me go to the chat function and put 614 here. And there you go, 614 is your smart attendance number, 614. All right, okay, so that's one concrete reason why we see that the member states of the European Union agree to, the term they use, pool, P-O-O-L, to pool. That means to coordinate their sovereignties. They're very, the governments of the European Union member states are very careful not to imply that somehow Germany is giving up its national self-determination, or France is giving up its national right of self-determination, or Bulgaria is giving up its national right of self-determination through European integration. They use terms like, we're not limiting our sovereignty, we're only pooling our sovereignty. We're only coordinating our sovereignties to cooperate and collaborate. We're not limiting our sovereignty. Oh, no. Because there are groups, as you're going to read about the Eurosceptic parties in Poland and in France and elsewhere, that are arguing the European Union, it's a threat to the national sovereignty of Poland. It's a threat to the national sovereignty of France. Europeanization is a threat to the national sovereignty of Hungary. Oh, there are always those actors within Hungary, all of the member states, who are saying that. So if you're a politician in the European Union member state, you have to be aware of that, and you are aware of that, and you have to be wise to be very careful about not giving your political adversaries propaganda points by claiming that the European Union is a threat to German national self-determination, or Italian national self-determination, or Hungarian national self-determination. No. We never say we're limiting our national sovereignty. We say we're pooling our national sovereignties instead. And okay, so because as I said, you really cannot understand public opinion in any modern state today unless we understand the role of nationalism. And some states have stronger nationalistic tendencies among their people than others. And there are intense Ukrainian nationalists, but Ukraine is not like France. Ukraine in some ways is very different from Germany. It's very different from Poland. Ukraine is a country that has very complicated, undeveloped public national consciousness as Ukrainians. Like, what does it mean to be Ukrainian? It's not easy. It's not easy to answer that question. It's easier to answer that in France. It's easier to answer that in Germany. It's easier to answer that in Poland. But in Ukraine, it's different. Now, there are intense nationalists in Ukraine, and they're fighting and dying today, along with innocent people, against the Russian invasion. But the influence of Ukrainian nationalism is more complicated and not as intense as I would suggest it is, for example, in its European Union member state neighbor, Poland. Okay, so we only have 10 minutes left in the class, so I have to make sure that we talk about the assignment that I asked you to do for next class. And so we go to assignments here, and so you can see I gotta make sure I'm always remembering to share the screen with you. And so you see here is something I asked you to submit through Cyber Campus, a 150-word paragraph on this view that member state governments in the European Union are more important than the European Union for the rest of the world. Like, if you're the government of South Korea, or the government of Japan, or the government of China, or the government of Russia, Do you focus your efforts on influencing the government in Rome and the national government in Germany and the national government in France and the national government in Poland? Or do you focus upon the European Commission, the European Council, the institutions of the European Union? And there's no right or wrong answer. I just want you to take a position and write 150-word paragraph and submit it by before Friday's class, which means by Thursday morning, so that I can write comments on it and send it back to you. And please be sure to support your ideas with information that you use and cite from the readings. Please remember that no more than 10% of any paragraph or any homework that you write should be quotations of text from another source. So if you do copy text from another source, you put in quotation marks, right? Those little like this. These are quotation marks, right? In quotation marks. And you give the page number and the source and that where that's from, that text is from. But no more than 10% of any homework that you give me should be, text that's like this, word for word. So that means if you submit a 150-word paragraph, no more than 15 words should be copied word for word from another source, okay? Put it in your own words. When you have to rephrase information in your own words, you're more likely to learn. If you have to think about it so that you can put it in your own words, you learn more that way, okay? And please, give the source. So, and then so the reading that we've assigned, let me open up those notes. So chapter 1, we didn't really have time to cover very much. Chapter 1 is an overview of the European Union and European institutions. So there's the European Commission. So for this paragraph that's due by Thursday, if you're the government of South Korea, should you spend your time talking to the European Commission and the European Parliament, or should you talk to Olaf Scholz, Chancellor of Germany, to get something done with regard to the European Union? So the member states remain key actors in the European Union's policymaking process, but at the same time, European integration has a big impact on the peoples of Europe. Just as you can probably infer, if you are going to always think that we always have to collaborate, coordinate, and cooperate, we have to pool our sovereignties in the European Union member states, then that will begin to affect how the peoples of Germany and France and Italy collectively understand what is their national interest, right? That their national interest isn't just doing what's best for Italy, but it's best for doing what's best for Italy within Europe. The point is that process of collaborating, cooperating, coordinating can itself over years and years become a habit, become institutionalized, so that understanding what it means to be German in the world, or Italian in the world, or French in our world, this world today, is affected by those years and years of European integration. And what are the long-term impacts of that? That's a good question. Will we see, for example, basically people acquiring a new identity as being European, becoming more and more important and overriding, German and national identity and French national identity and Italian national identity? And there's no easy answer to those questions. I mean, I spend time trying to figure out how that might happen, but the point is that how Germans understand what's in their interest collectively overall is impacted by how you go about deciding what your interests are. And if the process of deciding what your interests are Europeanized process, is a European process, is a European Union process, is a Europeanization process, then that's going to, in fact, affect my understanding of what my interests are. So that's the meaning of this impact, the statement that the Europeanization has impacted the member states, and how that happens, that's the theme in the book. But again, the book is written by many different authors, each different author for each chapter. Some chapters have more than one author, and they are going to try to approach the impact of Europeanization, for example, on Greece, has been significantly different than the impact of Europeanization on, say, Germany. I mean, you know, the modern German state since 1945 has been directly and immediately connected to Europeanization. That the German post-World War II German state and European integration are inseparable on purpose. And it seems to have convinced the countries that are within Europe, within the European Union, that Germany is not really a danger to them, despite the bad history until 1945 between France and Germany and Poland, for example. And so this is an overview, but you've been also assigned chapter 2. And chapter 2 here is, let me open that up too, because that's also for the reading for this week. Oh, so this is, let's see, what's this? I don't care. Ella asks, how do I prefer that you cite your sources? I don't have a preference. It's up to you. So for some people, Ella, this is a new issue or new concept, citing sources. So I don't want to go into all the complex, like there's the American Psychological Association style, and then there's the Modern Language Association style, and then there's the Chicago style, and there's the Harvard style. I don't care which one you choose, just as long as you make sure you give me the page number and the source where the information is from, and you cite it in the paragraph, that you give me the page number in that source where the information is located at the end of the sentence where you use that information in your paragraph. Okay. And yeah, you can use, Gloria, yeah, you can use footnotes to cite if you want to, right? That's another style. I mean, there's so many different styles, right? So I don't want to, get too tied up with it. But like I said, for some people, it's a new concept. So so here you can see these are the chapter 2 notes, and of course we're already almost out of time here. I think this is chapter 2 here. Yeah. So yeah. So they try to focus on what is a nation state, and again, I mean, I feel this issue of nationalism is really become a powerful factor before the current crisis in Ukraine. I mean, when there's a chapter in the book on Great Britain, even though Great Britain's no longer a member of the European Union, and we want to try to understand what happened. Why did Britain leave? And that is a question, I think, of British nationalism. So we'll try to supplement the textbook where it's possible or where it's necessary to try to explain some of these points. And hopefully I did it in my comments, like here are my comments in the notes. But that's it for today. Okay, so we have to stop there because I will have to get set up for the next class. So unless anybody has any pressing questions, I will close the class and I will post the link to the recording of the class on our website. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.